this episode, Dude and Jason go through the Old Forester 117 series, then dive into the new Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. Tune in to find out what they thought on this episode of The Bourbon Hunters. But before we get started, do you want to support our podcast? Do you like bourbon gear? Visit our website at www.bourbonhunters.com to buy some of our custom bourbon gear and to help support the podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us on our hunt for great bourbon. Reward yourself and sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Bourbon Hunters. I am Duke Poole. I'm joined by
Jason C.
And we are flying solo tonight. No Tyler, no Brett, and no other tag-alongs. So, well, I heard a great... I've been listening to the Smartless podcast lately. It's got Jason Bateman and Will Arnett.
Yeah, Will, I love
and
that.
Sean Hayes, I think is his last name, from Will and Grace. And it's a pretty good podcast. It's pretty funny. And I was listening to the Matthew McConaughey episode, and they were Jason Bateman was making fun of himself because they had Matthew McConaughey on like a year earlier, and his technology failed. So he went on a tirade, not knowing, because the thing is Will Arnett announces who it is, and they don't know who it is until he announces it. So they're there, ready to go, but they have no idea who it is until Will Arnett gives his intro and then says it is, blah, blah, blah. Well, he never got to even hear that. So he had no idea it was Matthew McConaughey. This is a year ago. His technology fails on him. They can hear him. He's going off like on a tirade about how, he's in a tailspin and all this stuff. And Matthew McConaughey is just dying laughing. And so Jason Bateman makes fun of himself and uses a phrase called mental midgetation. And I immediately thought of Tyler. And I was like, that is great. I cannot wait to throw that at Tyler one of these times.
Just kind of unleash that whole phrase on him. Oh my God.
Yeah. So today we've got we don't have the entire collection, but we've got all but two of them, right?
Yeah, I have all but two of them. The Old Forester 117 series. We kind of thought of this idea a while ago. And in the meantime, we realized that I drank all of the first release that Jackie Zykin ever did, which was the Angel Share release.
Yep.
And then the Bottle and Bond one, which is the newest one. I was feverishly trying to get one or find a sample, but couldn't get a hold of the guy that I think that had one. But we have 4 really good options to kind of drink through, and then kind of a little cherry on top at the end. We have a little Maker's Mark Cellar Aged, which I know Dude has not tried yet, and be interesting to get your take on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. I'm gonna have to get a picture of that too in my room just before you leave too. So I've been terrible lately of taking pictures of what we've been doing. Like we had all those larcenies last week, and we had a whole bunch of them just sitting out on the table.
What was it? So I listened to that podcast. What was the last one you guys drank? Because I don't remember hearing
the B523.
That was the last one you had?
Yeah, we don't have the C that just came out. I don't know.
Because I don't know if you guys were just so like, you were feeling it. I felt like I was listening, and I felt like you just jumped to the last bottle, and you didn't say what it was. I'm like, which one are they drinking?
Oh,
like,
I thought we announced it earlier, so maybe I didn't say what it was. Yeah, it was B523 for those of you listening and maybe missed that. It was good. I really enjoyed the B523.
It seemed like you guys love the C922 the best.
The C922 is outstanding. The B523, I didn't have the A from this year, but the B523 was really, really good.
Yeah, based on what I had, A123 was, again, I think we're getting into a point where Heaven Hill is starting to figure it out, like how these larceny barrel proofs are and how they should be. Because A123 was another solid release. I don't think it was a C922 caliber.
But still, that's now 3 in a row.
Yeah,
that have been pretty good.
And B523 was, as you said, was really good too. A little bit sweeter. C922 was just a beast of a bourbon.
And then I think the other one we did was the A120 maybe.
Yeah.
That was a bourbon of the year or whiskey of the year from Whiskey Advocate or someone like that.
Was it? Yeah, actually, yeah, I did not agree with that at all.
That's fine. But it was good. It was good.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. For those early batches of Larceny for me are really rough.
Well, and for me, what I didn't like about those is they were just hit and miss. You'd have a good one, then you'd have a bad one.
Yeah.
And then a really bad one, and then maybe an okay one. And they just weren't consistent.
Yeah. And they didn't taste like weeders to me. I'm like, this just tastes like a younger Elijah Craig barrel proof. Like, there's nothing weeder about this. But now, I think they're getting to a point now they are starting to taste. Starting to get a little bit more of a weeder type, a little bit more like the fruit forwardness comes through that you get from a weeder. But Heaven Hill is also one of the few folks that make weeded bourbon that go in the barrel at 125 proof.
Yeah. I mean, that's good too. That's going to give you that extra kick, I feel like.
Yeah, but most folks would tell you, like, Stutz of Weller days and, weeders need a lower entry proof. Right. So Heaven Hill's like, screw that.
I know. And I mean, we talked a little bit. We didn't talk about entry proof and stuff like that last week. We did talk about a little bit of the history, the Fitzgerald and the Stutz of Weller and all that stuff. But it was a fun episode, getting into some larcenies like that. And I walked in to Kroger the day after we recorded, and they had it sitting out on the shelf.
Really?
Yeah, they had B523. They also had the what else did they have? It was shoot, I don't remember now, but they had two things, and so I had to go in twice because they got their stuff a little bit later in the day.
Nice.
And it's the thing I love about that Kroger is they don't always get their stuff out at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever it is when they open. Sometimes they don't get it out till 1 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't know if it just shows up late or...
No, I mean, from my relationships that I've had with some of the guys at Kroger, Giant Eagle that I've talked to, just basically really, sometimes it just depends on how the pallets arrive in the truck.
Yeah.
Because if you have all the allocated stuff, that was loaded first, it takes them a long time to get to it. They got to rummage through all the vodka and everything else before they get to it. There's a lot of Fireball out there, dude.
There's Fireball whiskey, and then there's Fireball. What's the other one? What was the
barrel aged Fireball?
Well, no, they had that what do you call it? Lawsuit out against them because some of them said Fireball whiskey, and the other ones were like Fireball liqueur.
Yeah.
But the labels look almost identical, minus the word like whiskey on some of them. And that's what they were being sued on because they were being sold. Fireball was being sold at non-liquor stores.
Yeah.
That didn't have liquor, selling capabilities. So they were selling the liqueur version.
Interesting.
And so people were buying it thinking they were getting Fireball, and then someone decides they have to sue because they're stupid. But
all right, so it's an Old Forester kind of night. I like this.
Yeah, this is the Warehouse.
This is the Warehouse H.
What's the proof on this?
This is 98 proof. 98's an interesting proof point.
It is, which is it's right around what I like about Old Forester, which is that 100.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
So 117 series was basically the brainchild of Jackie Zykin before she left.
Right.
The early bottles, the first bottle that we talked about earlier, which was the Angel Share, was the first release, and it was the first.
That was a whole bunch of like light barrels, right?
Yeah, like basically like a lot of short barrels kind of blended together, and it was a big deal to her. I remember talking to her about it, and I think you did too. It was basically like having her signature, the first female signature on an Old Forester bottle. Yeah,
we talked to her after the K came out, so that was when we got to talk to her,
which was pretty cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, her signature's on the bottle anymore. So, but this is Warehouse H. This is the one we're starting with first, and this is, according to the story and the lore behind it, it really celebrates Old Forester's growth after World War II. The construction of the brick warehouse began in 1946. That housed 50,000 barrels. They said that this warehouse is a little bit special or unique in the way that generally on the low floors of the warehouse, you get cooler temperatures. For whatever reason, this is a heat-cycled warehouse, and the lower floors can get hot temperatures in this particular warehouse, which is, unusual, yeah.
Well, on the nose, I get typical Old Forester.
Yeah, and this is Old Forester banana bread.
Banana bread. I was going to say banana bread, yeah. And it's so interesting. I know some people that don't like banana, and because of that, they don't like Old Forester. But I love Old Forester. Like I'm a Old Forester homer for sure. And one of the things that stands out to me all the time is just the banana. I love banana, and this is it reminds me of like the so. Growing up, my mother used to make banana bread, and she would just let those bananas look like they were going rotten, like black. And then she would make the banana bread out of that. And that's the smell that, really extra ripe banana. That's the, what is it? What do they call the esters?
Esters.
Esters. Whatever it is that produces that smell is what I get out of the Old Forester all the time.
So this to me, and you can, because I know you love Old Forester 100 Signature, as well as I do. This tastes like an amped up version of that.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's actually less proof, but...
yeah, it's 2 points less proof, but it's got way more viscosity, I think.
It does, and it's got a much more complex flavor profile. Like, there's a lot going on. There's, I don't know, there's like a leather in my mouth when I taste it. The banana's
almost
there, but
this isn't a knock on it, but it comes off a little bit like like that furniture polish note, a little bit on the end.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I get it on Old Forester a lot. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not furniture polish. It's acetone. That's
like
what I pick up, like nail polish remover.
Yeah, that's what I thought you meant.
And I get that on this sometimes on Old Forester products in general, mainly the higher aged ones. Obviously, most Old Forester products, if not all of them, besides birthday bourbon, are non-age stated.
Yeah.
So it's you never know how old these are, but
the President's choice is usually age stated.
Oh yeah,
too.
President's Choice, that's a good one.
They'll at least say like how many summers or something.
How many summers it's spent, yeah. But I mean, I think that's by design because they use heat cycling warehouses. I think it's the same reason why you don't see age statements ever from Woodford Reserve, and the other ones that use heat cycled warehousing.
And so from your perspective, what's the difference in, say, heat cycled warehouses versus, say, like a Texas warehouse where it's just unreasonably hot?
Well, heat cycled warehouses are, those are very temperature controlled. So even though it's heat cycled, the heat's never to the point where I don't think it's going to get as hot as Texas.
Right.
Texas heat is just another level of heat.
So I guess better way to ask the question. Understood that it's not going to reach the same heat levels. It's a controlled, environment in those heat cycled warehouses. But what I guess I'm trying to get at is Texas whiskeys and bourbons and things like that tend to soak up the wood quicker because it's hotter. They expand into that wood, and so a lot of times you'll see the coloring of I don't want to say the maturation because it's not. You're not getting that oxidation. You're skipping some of those steps, in my opinion. But a lot of people love that. A lot of people love that flavor of the Texie, that flavor profile for the Texas whiskeys and bourbons. But what I'm getting at is the heat cycled warehouse another, I don't want to say gimmicky because it's working for them, but another way to speed up that maturation? Is that, do you think, like, how? Yeah,
I think some people view it that way for sure. But I also think there's ways to do it to your advantage and to do it, to do it the right way, which I think Old Forester has figured out. Woodford Reserve also does it. But again, they're underneath the Brown-Forman umbrella, so they're kind of sharing the same barrels. Obviously they take the Old Forester column still, they blend it with their pot still from wood to make Woodford.
Right.
So it's interesting because sometimes I feel like I can taste the forced maturation. What does that
come off as to you?
How do I explain this? It's not as harsh as a Texas whiskey.
Sure.
But it gives me like this sawdusty, woody type of flavor profile. And it gives me a bitter aftertaste. When I get that bitterness on the back end, I feel like it's a youthful whiskey being pushed through a heat cycled warehouse in order to make it feel like it's might be a little bit older.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because I mean, let's just Old Forester in general, right? They're what, around that 6-year range usually.
I mean, the
6,
single
7 years.
barrels are about 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you're going to get that type of flavor out of traditional rick houses. But again, like you said, I think there is a I guess a trade-off there in the sense that you do get a little bit of, I don't want to say youthfulness, because it's not really youthfulness. It's
but I do think so. Here's the point: like Jackie Zykan always said that Old Forester tastes better when it's proof down.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with that heat cycling.
Yeah.
Because anytime I've had one of the barrel proof picks, you could even point out to Woodford Reserve batch proof. That's when I taste that bitterness the most. So maybe that's what she meant, because when you proof it down, it kind of kills that part a little bit. You get more into the flavor. You don't get those like harsher undertones that you get when you just like kind of somewhat force maturing it rather than just letting it be. You know what I mean?
No, that's interesting, and I've had that same feeling too. I didn't have a way to describe it, but bitterness I think is a good way, and I get that on all their barrel strengths, almost all of them. And I love, there's a few barrel strengths I have of theirs that are just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they all taste better if you just drip a little water into them and let them kind of open up just a touch.
I got to say, the more I sip this Warehouse H, the less banana it gets and the more vanilla confectionery it gets to me. Like I just keep sipping and just keeps getting sweeter and sweeter. It's nice. It's a nice profile.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I still get the banana on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. You're right. I'm not getting it necessarily as much in the taste profile, but it's good. I do like you said, it is an amped up. We should have brought out the 100 just to compare it as a starting point.
I don't think the texture would have been even close.
No, because that's definitely thinner. The 100 signature is definitely a thinner mouthfeel. Yeah, this is good. This is one of those bourbons that I feel like I wish, and I know they kind of have to give more people a chance to get it, but these little 375 bottles that they come in.
I like it.
Yeah, I just, what I don't like is this is something I feel like I could sit down for an evening with and let it kind of, as I talk about it, tell the story, evolve and as I drink it. But you do that with a 375, it might be gone after 2 nights.
Yeah, exactly. 2 nights. Well, you share that bottle, it's gone.
Well, share it if you share it. Yeah.
But that's what happened with the first bottle I had. I actually really enjoyed the Angel Share one. We go back to that one. It was so concentrated and just really rich and delicious. I couldn't put it down. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my god, it's gone.
Yeah, I think you brought some of that over one time, so I think I've had that, and I do remember it being really good.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, just kind of looking across right now, is the color of these bottles. Yeah. Now, the one on the far right looks like it's really dark.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the 1910 extra old,
right?
Which we will get into.
So that makes sense, but it's interesting because that one, these are all really really dark.
Yep.
Which I like that. That usually makes me think it's going to have something. Ooh, that last taste I just had of that first one, the H.
Yeah.
That just exploded. That was
nice. It's really good, man. I really like that one. That was kind of a sneaky. I don't remember it being that enjoyable, to be honest. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and it's our first one, so let's hope this continues.
All right, so now we're on to the Warehouse K. Now this should be a nice transition because now we're going into 110 proof for Warehouse K. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Warehouse K, I know you had pulled up some info, but Warehouse K is generally the warehouse you see a lot of their single barrels come from.
Right. It said it was a crowd favorite, basically, for a lot of the single barrels. But Warehouse K was built in 1953. It also is a heat-cycled warehouse. Do they have any non-heat cycled warehouse?
That I don't know. I feel like they couldn't because it would mess with their
process.
Not just their process, but just like their consistency.
Yeah. What? So you mentioned that Warehouse H holds, what did you say, 50,000?
50,000. Yeah.
What's a normal rick house hold? Do you know?
Yeah, anywhere from 50 to 60,000 barrels.
Okay, so it's a good sized rickhouse then.
Yeah, I mean some of the smaller. I mean they can get into like 30,000s. I think the wild turkeys ones only hold. I don't think they hold nearly that many, but
Now this one doesn't say how big that warehouse is, so it doesn't really mention. I'm sure you could probably find out and look it up. But yeah, I think I do remember liking this when we had Jackie on. That's the last time I've had this because she only sent us that little, what is that, 200 milliliters right there. So I didn't want to go through it. I'm surprised there's actually any left. I do remember liking it though.
this just like gets into the part where you're like, you get all these sample bottles, you just like kind of forget you have it.
Yeah, right. And I do. I have a lot of those. But this is interesting. I get, and I don't normally get this on the nose, but I get a little bit of like a raisiny, peppery. I don't get the traditional banana on this one.
Yeah, I'm not getting that banana either. This one is coming a little bit more of dark fruit forward to me, which I really like.
And maybe that would fall in with the raisin, but I could definitely see like a, I don't know, maybe.
Definitely different profile.
Yeah,
I like this a lot.
But I'm picking up a spiciness that I don't normally pick up on a nose. Ooh, that peppery spice on that first drink was really, really evident. Even though it's at the back of the tongue, I felt like that was almost the first thing I caught.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. The finish isn't crazy long, but it's a nice finish. It kind of lingers there on your tongue. That spice, that pepper spiciness. I don't know what would you call that. It's almost just like a pepperiness to me.
Yeah, probably like black pepper.
Yeah, like a black pepper. Yeah, it's almost like a.
But this gets into more of the some of the more tropical notes that you get from Old Forester sometimes, which I like.
I'm not sure I'm getting those yet. What's
I get it more in the palate, not so much the nose. The nose is dark, and the palate to me is light and spicy.
Yeah, it is definitely spicy. I've only had one drink though, so let me. Pretty good tongue coating still.
Yeah, again,
I see what you're saying. On the front, it does feel a little light, almost crisp.
Mm-hmm.
And then the spiciness on the back. Is,
the finish is the best part of this.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
That finish is outstanding.
The finish is really good.
So what else has been going on, man? You've been what have you been? You guys been catching up on any TV shows? Besides Ted Lasso, done?
Yeah.
No more Ted Lasso talk.
So Trina and I have started watching the morning show.
Oh, how is that?
It's pretty interesting because
that's the one with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon, yeah, and then Steve Carell, and it's really good. And what I'm wondering how much I would have liked it had I watched it in real time. So the genesis of the original story and where it basically starts off is the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's Steve Carell is basically accused of sexually harassing the women at his, and not necessarily harassing, but basically using his stardom. He's one of the anchors on the show. Is
this based off of the Matt Lauer guy? Is that?
I don't think it's based off of it. It may be.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know enough to answer that question, to be honest. If it is, now that you've asked that, I could maybe see some similarities. I don't know if it's actually based off of any true event or if it was inspired by that or anything. I have no idea. But what's interesting is in season 2, they start getting into the COVID stuff. So watching it now in hindsight is kind of an interesting take because you're seeing some of the things that are almost tongue-in-cheek at the time that have now turned out to be, kind of funny. But it's good. The acting's incredible. It's got Billy Crudup in it. He's in there, and then so is Mark Duplass, however you say his name. It's got a really good cast, and all of the acting is just really, really top notch. The story's really good. It's a little. I guess maybe soap opera-y in a sense. There's a lot, and you have to. It's a drama. It's not a comedy.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Oh, dude. By the way, sorry, not to change this.
No, go ahead.
So just today, I was at work and we had a birthday on our team, and you know how you go out for like birthday team dinners, or team lunches, I should say. So we went to the Mexican place, Don Tequila.
Oh,
so Don Tequila is Spanish restaurant, decent Mexican food.
Yeah.
Burritos, enchiladas, all that good stuff. We're sitting there at lunchtime, and they have a bunch of TVs on in there. Some are playing sports, some are playing news broadcasts. But one of them, the one that was right in front of us, was playing a soap opera. Now, I don't know what soap opera it was, but there was a lot of crazy shit going down on the soap opera that I didn't think was happening on soap operas. All of a sudden, there's this scene, these two women talking, then the woman pulls her into the bedroom, and they just start making out and going at it. I'm like, what is happening? Like, this is going on in soap operas now?
That's not my soap operas from college. For sure.
I don't, man, I remember one year in, I don't remember if it was high school or college, where I got hooked on a soap opera. My aunt had just visited from Florida, and she stayed with us and my grandmother for a couple days, and she was watching the soap opera. And I remember, we were just all there, and I kind of got hooked on it just watching it. And I could not stop. I had to find out what happened. I remember the story. Like, some woman got buried alive because she was being, I don't know, this crazy guy that used to was infatuated with her, kidnapped her, buried her alive, and the butler knew what was happening, and he couldn't say anything because he didn't want to lose his job. And dude, it was I could not stop watching it.
Days of Our Lives, was it?
It might have been.
I loved when I was in college, we scheduled our classes around Days of Our Lives. Well, because you didn't have DVRs or anything, you had VCRs.
Yeah,
who wanted to?
It might have been Days of Our Lives, to be honest.
But
is that the one with the hourglass?
Yes,
and that might have been it.
Sands through the hourglass.
And these are the days of our lives.
So
these are the bourbons in our glass.
This is good. I might have to revisit this after we're done just to see what.
I think I like this more than Warehouse H, for sure.
It's
just got more going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and it might even just be the added proof, but there's a lot of spice to it, which I really enjoy, which kind of surprises me. Although it doesn't anymore. I've started to really.
I'm getting white chocolate on the back end, which I don't get. This is definitely not milk chocolate, but I'm getting that really sweet white chocolate note, I think, on the back end of this.
I could see that.
I'm what is that super sweet note that I'm getting? I think that's what it is.
So, interesting. Their site basically just really, really hammers out the pepper.
Yeah, it's a lot of pepper.
Bitter molasses, black cherry.
Black cherry.
And then on the finish, it just says a balanced spice, but it doesn't really say much of flavor. So
I could see black cherry. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But, that's not too far.
Yeah. That's good. I like that one.
Yeah, I do too. That one's really good. So what do we have next? What's the...
So next up, we're going into Whiskey Row Fire.
Okay, so that's...
So this has a nice little story on it, and this one was created by Jackie Zykin when she was still there. So back in July 2015, there was a fire that whipped through Whiskey Row. And in kind of honor of the firefighters and everybody that helped put it out for over, a few days. This batch was a blend of barrels that were filled on July 7th, 2015, which was the day the fire was put out. So this is a blend of barrels. Now, I don't know if this is a specific warehouse. All it says, it's a blend of barrels, distillery at 117, 119 West Main. So,
all right.
Let's see.
So this one I had done a barrel pick at Old Forester. And
okay. Is there water in there?
There might be a little still. I don't know. Have you ever met Ian there? Was he ever one of your barrel picking guys? I know you did one with actually Jackie Zykin, right?
Yeah, there was another dude with her, but I don't think it was Ian.
So when we were done, they had sitting there for us. We could buy a Whiskey Row 117 series.
Oh, very cool.
And so we were talking to them, and we're like, well, those are small. Is there any way we can get 2 of them? And so they were looking around. And to be fair, James at Bourbon Enthusiast, he's probably done 10 barrel picks with them. And he's even got like his plaque up on the wall inside the picking room and stuff. And he looked at his boss, and his boss looked back. He's like, yeah, whatever. So I ended up getting 2 bottles of it. But,
nice.
So it says aged at nearly 7 years.
Okay.
Was that what you were trying to figure out, or what were you asking about?
Oh no, I was.
There was something you said.
I just wanted to know if there was a.
A specific warehouse.
Yeah, specific warehouse.
It does not say in here anyway.
So these barrels were chosen by the Louisville Fire Department and aged nearly 7 years, which is a nice a nice age statement for an Old Forester, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, definitely.
This one's probably the sweetest of the 3. Man, this is brown sugar all day long.
This has got the description on the website has
what?
Fred Minnick's favorite
marzipan.
Marzipan, yeah.
Oh man, this is brown sugar and honey. It's really nice.
Yeah, I definitely get the brown sugar. I could see the honey for sure. But it's sweet, man. That nose is so sweet. It's almost like a powdery confectioner.
This is super confectionery.
I almost feel like I'm going to accidentally snort the powdered sugar. You know what I'm talking about? Like, how you accidentally inhale, like if you're getting ready to bite into powdered sugar treat, and then you accidentally breathe in right when it's at your mouth. Oh wow, that's sweet.
The even the palate is sugary sweet too to me. There's some
wow.
Not so much dark fruit on this one. I feel like there's a brighter fruit on it, like almost like a strawberry.
Yes.
Man.
It's almost like a strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to say that I don't like this so far as much as the other, just because the finish seems to fall flat for me.
It does fall very flat. I'd still like K better. Again, did we say the proof it was on this one?
We didn't say that yet.
This is 100 proof. So
right at there. Now the flavors are great. The mouth feels good, but it just kind of falls flat at the end.
You know who would like this? Tyler would like this.
Probably, yeah.
Because this is like a Blanton style type bourbon, where it's like super sweet.
So 2 things that have to be brought up on every episode: Ted Lasso and blends. So we've made our quota.
We made our quota today.
Already.
We've done both.
So yeah, I mean the sweetness on this is outstanding.
I could see people really liking this bourbon.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It just falls flat on the finish.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming off of Warehouse K, where we were like, man, this thing, the pepper on this just goes on for days.
Agreed.
This is like dessert.
This is like dessert. It makes me wonder how the extra old.
Yeah, I remember sharing that out, and I don't even remember what that tastes like.
I don't either.
Be interesting to see. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the regular 1910. So here's a good question for you. 1920 seemed to be kind of the darling of the Whiskey Row series for a long time, and I still think for most people it is.
Yeah.
But the newer bottlings to me have changed up a little bit. It's gone, for me, at least from my luck, from my perspective, from the bottles that I've bought personally. It went from like, they used to give me like this really nice black cherry chocolatey type of note to it with the banana.
The 1920?
1920.
Okay.
And now it's shifted. The later bottlings, the ones that are current now, the ones that I have bought, have been way heavier on the banana and less of like the cherry chocolate flavor that I loved from the old 1920s. So the 1910s now, or the 1910, I think, has kind of shifted my perspective. Even though it's a much lower proof at only like 93. Yeah. I don't know, that coffee chocolate combination.
Well, and I think I remember you doing a couple videos a couple years back where you loved the 1920 over the 1910, right?
I did.
And so now you think you're flip-flopped now?
I don't know if I'm fully flip-flopped, if that's a terminology. Well, I'm fully flip-flopped.
Fully flip-flopped.
Fully flip-flopped. But yeah, I mean, it's closer. That gap is definitely closing in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, I just buy it to blend it now, make the 1915.
I've got the PDF files for the labels.
I have a bottle all done.
Do you?
Yeah, I gotta make a second one. I have a 60-40 with 1920 and 1910, but I want to reverse it now. I want to do 60 of 1910 and 40 of 1920.
So what
and
is
bottle
that,
both
like
of
a
those.
1913 and a 1917?
I mean, technically, but yeah.
All right.
Man, this is super sweet.
So have you done a 50-50?
Yeah, 50-50 I've done.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of seen just I like it a little bit more heavy on the 1920 than the 19.
So you like it to lean 60-40.
Yeah, give or take, but I like it a little bit more 1920 than 1910.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think I've tried it the other way, or if I have, I don't remember if I liked it
on the 1910.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot of fun blends, man, that I've kind of found out over the years.
Well, I'll be going to Louder Than Life this weekend. We bought the tickets way back in December, I think, maybe January.
Yep.
And it's this weekend. And so that'll be like the 3rd anniversary, I think, or maybe the 2nd anniversary of when I got my President's Choice bottle just by luck, just showing up.
Just by luck.
It was just the craziest thing. But that weekend, I went and bought a 1910. That was the whole reason I was going to Old Forester, was buy a 1910 just to drink through the weekend.
Yeah.
And Trina actually enjoys the 1910. She likes that a lot. So
yeah, that's good.
it's one of her favorite bourbons. I'll tell you, that's sweet as can be.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the more you drink it, the less interesting it gets. It just
I agree. It just
the proof just dies, and
so Tyler would like it. It's a little more blantish. No,
blantish.
It's good, but like you said, it doesn't. It's almost like an ancient age, 10-star or whatever, where nice little profile right away, and then it just kind of stays flat after that. Never. And again, for one drink, not a problem. But when you're wanting to drink something through the evening, I kind of like something that continues to, evolve, or you pick up little notes. It's got a little bit more, complexity to it. So this is the extra old, and holy cow, it's almost like coffee flavor or color.
Yeah.
Which one are you still drinking?
I'm still, yeah. I went a little bit accidentally heavy on the pour there.
Did you?
Yeah.
So we said that was 100 proof on the 117 for the Whiskey Row Fire.
Mm-hmm.
So when you finish that, the 1910 Extra Old, it looks like it actually stays the same proof as the 1910.
Yep.
So it's the same proof. It's 93. So that would be an interesting little comparison to do a 1910 right next to that. So while you're finishing up, I'll read or try to.
That one's pretty easy. It just goes through the same process as the regular 1910, but it's left in that secondary barrel a lot longer.
Yeah, 18 months it says.
Yeah.
What's the 1910 do? Do you know?
I think the 1910 is it's like 6 months, like barely. It's not a long time.
Yeah, and so that second barreling is still a new barrel, right? So technically still bourbon, right?
Yep.
But I think that darkness, man, that really stands out to me. It looks like coffee. I mean, it's dark.
It does, and I don't know if it's just like it's what messes with your head, but it feels that way. Well, it feels like it's kind of coffee-ish.
But it's only 93 proof.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that it's only 93 proof and it's still that dark is kind of neat. Because a lot of times you'll see that type of darkness with a higher proof that hasn't been, cut down at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that at 93, that's that dark. That's going to be interesting for me.
Yeah, it's
Wonder how much oak is going to be present in that one.
And it's interesting too because regular 1910 is 93 proof, and this is it still 90? Oh, it is still 93.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like, it'd almost be neat to just throw the 1910 next to it and do a side by side.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah.
You want to grab it? We can do that.
One real quick.
Play. There you go.
Couldn't remember if you hit the record button again or play. All right, we're back. I grabbed the 93 proof 1910
Old
Forester.
Fine whiskey.
So that's the original 1910, the one that is available in the stores everywhere. And then we also have, to try next to it, is the 117 series 1910 Extra Old that Jason was just talking about. Both are 93 proof.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much of a difference there is.
I put the wrong cork in the wrong. Well, I mean, just having them sit next to each other.
Oh my God, the nose is pretty different. It's pretty crazy.
Are they similar?
Yeah, I mean,
that looks darker
in some aspects, but man, this thing is the Extra Old is no joke.
It's like, is it molasses?
Yeah,
it's like
molasses, roasted coffee bean.
Oh yeah, some coffee bean for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to go with the Old Fine whiskey first, the original 1910. Because
that's what I'm on.
It's going to have to go first, just for the taste buds, I think.
Yeah, Old Fine whiskey. Yeah, I love this one. It's just, it's got a little bit of like a mocha latte type vibe going on in it.
The nose to it is the 1910 is pretty good, and then you go to the Extra Old, and it's just like, holy cow! It's almost like they put a megaphone up to the aroma. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the thing that the Extra Age has that I think you get it very subtly on the regular Old Fine whiskey, the 1910 is like this little tinge of a smoke note, but I think you really get it in the Extra Age. I get this big waft of like barrel char smoke.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice.
All right, I'm going to taste the original. So the 1910. The original story behind that, I mean, that's a Whiskey Row series. So that was the whole point of the Whiskey Row series was them telling the history of their distillery through different expressions in time throughout. So you had 1870 was their first bottling, right?
Yep.
1897 was the Bottle and Bond year. So they did a Bottle and Bond version. 1910, which was actually their last release of the Whiskey Row series chronologically.
Yep.
And then 1920. So 1920 was basically just what they had going into Prohibition, right? So that
it was more of a Prohibition style whiskey at that time. I mean, meaning entry proof, final proof, what it came out as. So that's what it
was. That for like medicinal reasons they kept.
Yeah, I mean I remember. You got to remember, Brown-Forman was one of the the few distilleries that were allowed to one of the 6 that were allowed to continue to to make it. Make whiskey or make bourbon through Prohibition, for medicinal purposes only. Sure.
So the 1910. So like we think of all the double barreling and things like that. That wasn't a common thing, right? That was what happened in there. Was that a mistake, or they had to fix something? Or?
Yeah, basically the story goes is that because of the fire, they had to. There were some barrels that were completely, almost disintegrated, but. A lot of barrels caught fire, and they had to save some barrels, so they were pouring whiskey into some of these barrels that had a lot of fire damage to it, and it gave it this super chocolatey rich note. And out of it became a recipe. And the recipe, I remember when you go on site, Jackie was talking about it, how they literally left a recipe behind.
Yeah.
So they have the original recipe of how they originally made 1910, which is pretty cool. And then Old Forester decided to bring it back. Really cool story. That's one of those that I feel like Old Forester could tell me any story, and they've been around so long, I'd probably believe it.
Right. Whereas a lot of these stories you feel like are just made up legends.
It's so contrived.
Some marketing.
It's really the biggest thing that bothers me in whiskey today is
they
just
feel like they have to have something.
It's just the marketing ploys that are out there.
To be
honest, I understand you have to do it because you have to set yourself apart. But you got to understand the real marketing, I think it needs to be on the bottle, not the press release. Because whiskey geeks like us will read the press release, and we know about the bourbon sphere and what's happening and the 24 hours a day news cycle and all the stuff that's happening. And it just seems like when you're a casual drinker and you're just going to the store and looking, you're not going to know what the hell's in the bottle. So you spend all this time, all this money on a press release, and you blast it out to the masses. by the time you get to the shelf and people see it, nobody cares. Nobody heard what that story was. So tell us more on the bottle. Give us the transparency.
And the thing I think that bugs me, and this goes back to my marketing and stuff like that, and you have to deal with that stuff too.
Yep.
Is there was a book that I had to read in college. It was called 1-to-1 Marketing, right? And the idea was you're not trying to sell, one product to 1 million people. You're trying to sell 1 million products to one person, basically. And so the mindset for me on that is, yeah, those marketing stories and that BS is great to get people to the first bottle.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going to get them back to the second bottle?
Yeah.
It's got to taste good, right?
It does.
So like I think it's kind of what you're saying in the sense that it's got to be on the bottle, like the mash bill, the process, all that stuff. If it ties back to something in history, that's great and that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's not going to make me keep drinking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Elijah Craig being the father of, bourbon or whatever. Like,
yeah, that's
a great story. But if the bourbon sucks, I'm not going to drink it.
It honestly could be, bullshit. We don't know. Right, nobody really knows.
Right. It's just like that neat with, what was it? Zahn. What's his
name?
Where he's like, it was the grocer that did or was it the minister?
Was it the guy who did the fish and pickles and all that stuff? It doesn't matter how it happened. It just happened. And bourbon found a way.
And we're enjoying it today.
And we're drinking it right now.
All right. So I'm going with the 1910, the first. Yeah. I get some cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
Some, tobacco.
Oh, for sure, tobacco.
There's just
I think that molasses note's there.
It's there. It almost ties the cocoa and the tobacco together to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it's very rich. It's very rich. And it's a double barreling, I guess. So you almost expect it to be. If it wasn't, it would be a bit of a disappointment. But
even at 93 proof, it's pretty chewy.
Yeah, it's got a good mouthfeel. It's got a good flavor. It's got complexity. This is one of those ones that I can drink throughout the evening. Keep drinking it.
Oh yeah, this is definitely I actually feel like this is a desserty type of bourbon. I love it. It's sweet. It's like if you don't want to drink a cup of coffee, just have a pour of this.
Now, I'm going to save a little bit in this to go back to it after I have the very old or the extra old.
Yeah, the extra old on the nose and even the palate is a different animal. There's one thing I don't like about this extra old, and let's see if you get the same thing I do.
All right.
I love testing you. Not that it's a test, but just see it if you're getting the same thing that I get. But it's mainly on the palate, not the nose. The nose is fantastic.
The nose is ridiculous. If I had to guess anything that was going to maybe let me down on this is maybe it's a little tannic or something, like drying, because of the extra wood influence.
That's exactly what it is.
Is that what it's going to be?
I just feel like it kind of sucks the moisture out of your palate, especially on the back end. But it's very rich, and there's definitely more oak profile.
I could see that. On the
it's just a little bit darker than the regular 1910.
I'm not gonna lie. I think nose wise, this is probably the best of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like the 1910 regular better on the palate.
Yeah, I think the maturation, that extra maturation, it just makes it. It's a little too much.
Maybe 12 months.
Maybe 12 months.
Maybe 17 and a half.
Maybe they should have stopped.
It's not bad. This is good. But I just think I like the regular 1910 better.
Yeah.
On the palate. The nose on this is ridiculous.
Yeah, the nose is stupid. I could nose this glass all day. Mm-hmm. Gets into like molasses or like super dark maple syrup.
Yeah.
Coffee bean, mocha, that chocolatiness that it has. Man.
I'm really going to have to rinse before I try that Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
Because this is so rich.
Yeah, this is going to just kill it.
Wow. This is good.
So as far as your favorite, I'm gonna still call out the K. I think Warehouse K.
Yeah.
Is still, as far as the 117 series goes.
Right. I know what you mean.
I think Warehouse K is my favorite of the lineup tonight.
I think K and H are probably my two favorites.
Mm-hmm.
K is probably the one. It just had a lot going on. In a good way.
Whiskey Row Fire, I could see that being more of a fan favorite because of how sweet it is.
Sweet. But it just, the finish just dies from And maybe if we did it in a different order, that finish would have been a little more evident.
Maybe.
But after the first two, the finish really didn't feel like much to me. For the which one is that? The fire? But it was sweet. Oh my gosh! And the nose on that one, I should say, those two noses are probably my favorite. The Whiskey Row once extra old, not Whiskey Row, sorry, the 1910 extra old, and the Whiskey Fire are probably my two favorite noses.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the nose on the one was just like you were almost in like a baker's store. Or
I'm going to
like
blend the two 1910s.
Okay, yeah, let's do
I'm
that.
going to make a 1910 extra old.
Not
Not quite. A 1910.
12-month.
Maybe what is this? A teenager, senior citizen? What do we call this one?
Something.
Midlife. Let's call it the midlife crisis.
The golden years. Midlife crisis.
The midlife crisis.
The convertible.
Yeah, this blend just wants to buy a Corvette tomorrow.
The Camaro. The Camaro convertible.
It's going to buy a Corvette or a Harley Davidson tomorrow.
Harley Davidson. Harley blend. I like that.
Yeah. Do you have like a thought, like if you ever did have a midlife crisis?
Shit.
What would that thing be? Is there something in your head that you would think? You know what? If I was gonna go ham on something,
I think for me it's probably been CrossFit, man. I'm 48. I think I'm in my midlife crisis, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess you are
in shape and all that stuff.
But your midlife crisis would be CrossFit.
I don't know.
What do you mean? What do you mean CrossFit? Like the fact that you run a CrossFit place?
Well, I take CrossFit. I do.
I know that, but that's not something indulgent. I mean something self-indulgent.
It is to me.
It is to you. Okay. Well, that's a good thing.
I really enjoy doing CrossFit. It's
okay.
There's really something to the endorphins after a workout and just feeling good, like you've accomplished something. Even if you've done nothing all day, you get a workout in, you feel like you've done something.
Yeah, that's true.
And like the days that I don't get a workout in, and maybe this is signs of an addiction. I feel like I didn't do anything that day, or I feel almost, I don't want to say worthless, but I feel like I just,
I just started getting into working out again pretty heavy, just doing like walks and runs and lifting weights in between. And you're right. I feel like if I miss it, I feel like shit.
And it's interesting to me, like Trina and I, our journey started, and it's funny because I did it before her. And if you would have ever looked at the two of us, you would have guessed that she did it before me.
Yeah.
Because she is into it big time.
Yeah.
But I started P90X in the basement, did it for probably 2 years. And then it got boring in the basement, and we're doing the same thing over and over. So we did P90X.
That was my issue with P90X. I mean, it's fun, but every week, you put those DVDs back on, it's the same shit.
Right.
You need to switch it up.
We were quoting his videos, while he was doing it. Like, what was the one when he was talking to the German girl? She says. Potato soup or something, and I can't remember. But anyway, there's a couple things that Trina and I still say to this day that we got from those videos.
I remember I did the yoga video that he did.
Yeah.
And I did it once and I never watched it again because he was so annoying on that video.
I mean,
like the way he did it. Like,
he's annoying in a few of the videos, but like
he's like downward dog. Like he did it with this crazy annoying, and like every move, I'm like, dude, I can't watch this. I'm done.
That's funny.
Yeah. Let's go back to the kickboxing video, please. Thank you.
Well, so that's what happened is she got bored with P90X after a couple of years, started doing this hybrid thing between P90X and Insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like Shanti or something
like
that.
Shanti, yeah.
And so then we both decided, hey, we got to get out of the house and make it a little more social. So we went to, a friend of ours was a spin class teacher. No good?
The blend, it's way too... This tastes like straight up nail polish remover to me. It just got
the finish.
It got medicinal.
The finish definitely did. Yeah. It was okay at the
in the front.
Very viscous, and then
the finish goes way too medicinal.
Went acetone.
Yeah, it went acetone.
Went full acetone.
It went full ass.
Oh man. But yeah, so we started going to the Y and doing spin classes, and then that lady at the Y said, "Hey, you should try out CrossFit. I go to this gym over here." So we started going, and then I was hooked.
All right, so take CrossFit out of the equation.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't know, man.
What would it be?
I don't know.
You ever had like a desire for like a fancy car, automobile, something like
I'm
a
driving my
super
fancy car right now,
a super expensive watch or a I don't know what it would be.
So here's the thing.
I don't even know what it would be for me, to be honest.
It's tough for me because I feel like, and this is going to sound kind of douchey, and I'm fine with it sounding that way, I guess. I own it. But I feel like I've lived a life that, obviously like some sort of like millionaire or billionaire or whatever. I'm not in that stratosphere. But as a normal person, I feel like I've lived a life that most people haven't lived. Like I've traveled my ass off. I have enjoyed a lot of good times.
Yeah.
I have had success in my career for the most part. I don't know, man. It's tough for me because I've owned some nice cars. I've owned, maybe a vacation house. I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's a good question because that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know that I think that way. That's the problem. And I think, Trina and I, if we ever have arguments, it's a lot of times based off of that kind of thing. Like I don't really have a lot of wants. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I do have some wants, like bourbons, things like that I would love to have. But It doesn't. None of that stuff keeps me up at night. None of those things are too pressing.
I gotta say, man, I think I'm with you. I haven't, there's nothing that I feel like. I mean, there are things that that I like more than or willing to spend money on, like. I mean, what are my things? Bourbon and sneakers.
Yeah, sneakers, I'd say that's a big thing for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like between those two things, I mean, I have my family, I have my girlfriend, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I think that's all I ever wanted. Not to, sound really cheesy. Roll the dice.
Yeah.
Let's just whip out the cheese whiz right now. I get it,
no,
but
I'm right there.
I'm just saying, like you get to a certain point, it's always nice to have more things, but like I was like, for example, I was engaged to someone very early on. I think it was in I was like 23, 24.
Sure.
And I was an idiot. I don't know why I bought this girl a ring. I shouldn't have, but I did. And whatever. It fizzled out, broke up. Man, when we broke up, I went large screen TV. Because all this, treat myself, So all the stuff that I did, once we all the money I got back for the wedding, the ring, everything. I bought a big screen projection
so you
TV.
were that far along.
I got a motorcycle.
In the wedding planning.
Yeah, we were beginning stages, but
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, motorcycle. I got a dog. My mom was like, "All right, you're gonna calm down now." I'm like, "I think I'm good now."
I'm good. I'm good. Once I got the dog.
Yeah, once I got Max, I was good to go.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm not trying to act like I'm humble or something because I'm not humble. I'm a pretty big dick. I mean, I really am. And I don't care, but I feel like I'm a fun dick. You know what I mean? Like I'm a dick. I'll bust your balls. I do all that stuff, but I just don't. I don't care about that kind of stuff. Like, for example, when Trina and I go on vacation, she's generally the one driving the place we stay in because I don't care. Like, if there's a beach and a pool, I don't care where we're sleeping because that's all we're going to be doing there for the most part is sleeping. She's got to have, nice accommodations. It's got to be a well-decorated place. I'm like, why? We're there for a week.
Well-decorated?
Yes. And I'm like, we're there for a week. Why? Why does that matter?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Like the hotel, itself, or your room,
generally do like Airbnbs and stuff.
Oh, got it.
The house.
The house needs to be well decorated.
But I'm just like, why? I don't understand it because to me, if you're staying in that place, the reason you're going to the beach isn't to be in the hotel or the condo or whatever. It's to be at the beach or the pool or whatever you're doing. And so
Yeah, I'm right with you because like I had to. So recently, me and Kim we just booked a trip. We're going to Colorado next month. This is our first like trip by ourselves, like just the two of us in a long time. Because I drag her to all these whiskey events,
bourbon things, yeah, right.
yeah, and we haven't had a lot of chance to have like that, like a nice time away for just the two of us. So we're gonna get to do that this year. The last trip we took was 2 years ago. We went to Maine, and she always kind of says that was like the best trip, like one of the best trips she ever took. So I'm like, well, how about Colorado? Let's go explore like the Rocky Mountains. We're not really beachgoers a lot. We don't, she's kind of very weary of the sun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been a beach guy. Like, I don't mind the beach. I could lay on the beach, but I have very short patience. Like, after an hour, I'm ready to go in and do something else.
Sure.
So we like doing like the parks and the hikes and checking out different areas. And so, I mean, yeah, we're really excited. But yeah, like the same thing. It's like what hotel we're staying. Like, who cares? So I had her pick at the hotel. Like, you pick it.
I just, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I really, really doesn't. So flashback 1 year ago, it was we did a trip with my parents to Santa Rosa Beach in Florida. Love Santa Rosa Beach. It's an amazing little small town just east of Destin, and it's almost to where the Truman Show was filmed in Seaside, Florida.
Oh yeah.
So it's in between Destin and the Truman Show location, which was Seaside.
Underrated movie, by the way.
Oh, so underrated. So anyway, we go there, and there's roaches.
Oh.
Now, there's the big palmetto bugs, which you're going to get in Florida.
Yeah.
So that's not and that freaks her out, however.
I get it.
But she understands at least that those should be there. But the little roaches were there, too. And
you're good.
And that freaks her out. So we were sleeping with the lights on the rest of the trip. If she caught any movement anywhere, I was woken up. I did not sleep the whole trip because of that.
Yeah.
And,
so much for sleeping.
So she has PTSD growing up. She grew up kind of poor.
Okay.
And so she had places with roaches and stuff like that. And so like one of the things, and I think this is the root of why she probably has to have the nice places when we go somewhere, is because she doesn't want to go back to feeling like she did when she was younger. And
oh yeah, I totally get that.
And, I get it too.
Yeah,
I don't question her for it, but of the two of us, she's the one who I see her going through a midlife crisis before I see myself going through one. Is what I'm getting at. I just don't care.
Yeah, I don't think that way either. It's like I got my stuff. I mean, I do the bourbons and I mean, I think the only thing that I would, I've always liked like a nice car.
Yeah.
But other than that, like that's it. Like I don't buy fancy clothes. I have my sneakers. I get my bourbons, and that's it. I'm good.
For me, I think if I start to have a midlife crisis, it would be due to like the impending mortality.
Yeah.
And I think for me, if anything, that would make me want to spend more time with my family, not buy stuff, but actually have more experiences and do some things,
for sure.
activities and stuff. So I'd say,
so maybe for you it'd be like spending money on like an outlandish amount of trips because you want to keep doing stuff.
Yeah, or like you said, like going to Colorado, going up the Rockies, or doing things like that, going to Europe or experiencing.
We're doing a hot spring.
Oh yeah,
which have never
I've
these
never
natural hot springs.
Yeah,
it sound just basically like a like a naturally God-given sauna.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Which is pretty cool.
I've heard of them. I've just never done one either.
And it's like right in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. It's kind of like the last day we're going. It'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool.
All right, man.
We've got Cellar aged
Maker's Mark.
So this was bought in Ohio?
Yes.
So what is that, 160?
150 retail.
Okay.
Now, this is a special blend of aged barrels. 87% is 12 years old Maker's Mark, and 13% is 11 years. Okay,
so that being said, what is the standard Maker's age? 6 to 7 years, right?
About 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is 100% at least 5 years to 4 to 5 years older than that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So it's substantial. I mean, you're talking about a substantial age increase from what you normally get with Makers.
And this is not necessarily age stated exactly.
Oh, it's age stated.
But I mean, is it exactly 12 years or is it over 12 years? Like, you know,
No,
what I
it's
mean?
12 and 11. It says
So for sure 12.
It says
for sure.
87% of the blend is 12 years.
Right, but you
Yeah.
know, with like whiskey, I just didn't know if maybe it could be 12 to 15.
Well, that's an interesting point because this, if you could kind of think of this bottle very much like the Russell's 13 is going to be.
Okay.
So Russell's 13 when it first came out, and I want everybody to listen closely because this is what happened in Russell's 13. When Russell's 13 was announced and it came out, everybody went apeshit and tried to grab as many as they can, and they also charged like thousands of dollars for it on secondary when it first came out, not realizing it's going to be an annual release.
Yeah.
It's going to come out every year, so you don't have to go ham and spend all this money on getting one. It's coming out again. Same thing with Maker's Mark. Now,
is this Cellar Age going to come out every year?
it's going to be every year. Now, the proportions and the ages
Might
could
change
be
a little
different.
bit, yeah.
So we could see a 13-year in there at some
So
point.
if you're a collector, you may want to get it every year.
For sure. But just like don't go crazy spending all this money on
Well,
it.
shoot, I've already seen it on the second on websites for $600.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's
And
nuts.
I'm like, everything I've read says people have been spending around $300 and up for it in all the reviews that I've read, and they're all like, it's not worth it. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not
not.
even close to being worth it.
Yep.
But I could see at $150 it being worth it. I mean,
Well, you haven't tried this yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. So I'm saying that preemptively. But like what I mean by that, and I was about to explain, is the general rule of thumb for LTOs or whatever they are, $10 a year.
Yeah.
And you're
So this is a little bit more than that.
right, 11
Yep.
and 12 years. So you're at least 120, maybe 100. So 150 because it is a special release.
It is, and again, I could see why people are going to go crazy for this one because Makers has never released to the
Anything this
masses
old.
anything nearly this old.
Right.
So a lot of people have asked me, so why are they doing this now? Well, I think there's a few reasons. One is because they have the, they discontinued the wood finishing series.
Right.
That's done. So it's kind of like, what's next? You have Jane Bowie, and you also have Denny Potter, who left.
Well,
They're starting their own. They're
Right.
starting their own thing.
Have they announced what that is yet?
They have. They've announced the plans for the distillery, and that's going to be built, which I think is
Is there a name for it? Or
it's
anything?
quite the game. I think there is a name. I think
I'm
it's
not-
like
not trying to put you
Jane.
on the spot.
I think it's like Jane Potter or something like that. It's a combination of their
Of
names.
their names. Jane's Addiction.
Yeah, maybe. So what happens is that bottles like this, that when they come out and they get super popular really fast, you just don't know what could end up coming next from Maker's Mark. But the biggest thing that they did for this one, they are scared to death of oak. They hate oak at Maker's Mark.
What do you mean by that? Like, explain.
You've done tours there, right?
Yeah.
Tours.
Tours. Or as Tyler says, tours.
Tours. Yeah. So when you did the tour, did they say the words taste vision a lot? Did you hear that? Taste vision? Do you remember them saying
not enough
that?
that it stood out.
So taste vision is something they use a lot, is because that's why they constantly are rotating their barrels and going up and down the rick house, trying to because they want consistency. That's what they're built on.
Right. Their story is that they rotate the barrels so that every Maker's Mark,
every Maker's barrel will hit that taste vision that they want.
Almost impossible.
Yeah, but they somehow do it. I think they're probably very well versed at making it happen.
They do it when you get the batched bourbons in the bottle.
Well,
do they do it from barrel to barrel is the question. So that's, you're right. They achieve it.
Well, the wood finishing series stuff, you got to remember it starts out in the warehouse and then it's aged for 9 months in there. 9 weeks in that limestone warehouse where they do the picks, the private selects.
Yeah.
So now they built that limestone warehouse not that long ago. I think it was relatively 7-8 years ago that it was finished. So what they did was same thing with the cellar aged. It started out in the rick house, rotating up and down, clocking all the barrels, doing all that stuff for the first 6 years of its life. And the rest of it was moved into that limestone warehouse.
So it lived 5 or 6 years, or 4 or 5 years in the limestone.
In the limestone, because they don't like the oak. Maker's Mark has always said, all the Samuels have said they do not like that tannicky, oaky flavor.
And I get that. That's a lot of times the knock on the Elijah Craig 18.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you get a special Elijah Craig 18, it's phenomenal. But most of the time, I feel like they're going to be a tannic, oak heavy, and some people like that. There's definitely a group of people that enjoy that oaky, and I enjoy it from time to time. It's not my go-to when it comes to bourbon, but I do like from time to time a nice oak forward bourbon.
Yes.
But I get what you're saying about being afraid of oak. That makes sense because there is a group of people out there that I've read in different forums and different, articles, reviewers, Breaking Bourbon, different places, that once you get past 12 years, you're not really doing much except for just adding more oak.
I understand that, but I always just found it weird. Like, makers were just so hyper focused on that age of 6 years. Like, anything past 6 years, they said, they can't deal with it. Sure. So then they bring this out because they can move it to a limestone warehouse. But yeah, let's get into it.
So let me ask you this:
Yep.
When was their limestone warehouse finished?
I believe it was 2013, 2014, something like that. I'm trying to remember the history from the review I did.
So just kind of thinking about this from a planning perspective, obviously this has to have been in the works for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
6 years-ish.
And, I mean, we were talking about Fred Minnick earlier. He's been banging the drum on a high-age Maker's Mark for a long time.
Right.
I mean, the conception could have started then conceptually. You know what I mean?
But my point is on this is that this isn't just a knee-jerk thing. They've had to have planned this for at least 5 or 6 years. And it makes me wonder, do they sit there in a marketing department, in a tasting department, or a master distiller department, or whatever, maybe all those things combined, where they storyboard out what's happening, what they're releasing? Because obviously the Old Forester, for example, we're doing Old Forester 117 series today, and we've got 4 out of the 6 here. Mm-hmm. But they had to have planned them out ahead of time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't think people realize how future focused bourbon is.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at is, so when do you think the 117 series was probably planned out? And follow-up question to that, Jackie's Icann's no longer there, but do you think this, even the Bottled and Bond that we didn't do tonight, which is their most recent of the 117 series, was she part of that planning? I assume she was, right?
I assume she was,
right?
Yeah,
because of what you just said, how forward-focused they are, or future, planning or whatever it is you want.
Yeah, and I think the really special distillers are, or not just the distillers, but the people, making the big decisions at distillers, the ones that are able to read the tea leaves the best are the ones that could stay, the ones that stay that much more relevant.
At the end of the day, you have to have good bourbon.
Yep.
So a lot of these gimmicky things I feel like can mask some of that. But at the end of the day, you have to have good bourbon. If you're going to last, you have to have good bourbon. You might fool me once. You're not going to fool me 5 times, right?
Yeah. So 2016 is when they opened that limestone warehouse.
Okay. So that's 7 years ago. So this had to have been planned close to that time. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was getting at. That was kind of the reason I was asking that question. Is if that is the case, if this is 5 to 6 years older than what they normally release, then this had to have been planned.
Yeah, it was definitely planned.
All right, let's nose this thing.
All right, here we go.
I was trying to. If you didn't notice there, I was buying time to let my palate reset a little bit from the 117 extra old that was just destroying my palate, I'm sure.
But really, this because of that limestone warehouse, I think, is why they were like, okay, let's throw some barrels in here and see what happens.
Yeah.
Without it, I don't think they would have done it.
Well, right, because if they're like you said, if they were actually afraid of the oak, that cooling warehouse, that warehouse that's just so much cooler because it's right up against. It's almost like it's underground, even though it's not, because it's up against a lake that's separated by a limestone bed. So like the cooling factor of that warehouse, when you walk in, it's just naturally cool.
Yeah, it's a cooler environment in that limestone warehouse, which is gonna, kind of keep it from getting overly oaky.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Wow.
when I heard about this release, I was like, man, Maker's Mark. If I know Maker's Mark, they're gonna do whatever it takes to keep the oak out of this thing.
Yeah.
And they did. I mean,
Well,
the oak is there.
I'm not getting it in the nose,
but it is sweet.
In the nose, I am getting a sweetness, and I will say that we probably did a disservice to this by having that 117 extra old first, because
Oh yeah, just try to X that out.
I'm trying to. That's why I was just going on my long soliloquy.
Just focus on what's in the glass here, because I think there's some really beautiful flavors that come out of here.
I get a sweetness.
It's very toffee. And I get almond.
That's what it is.
And I
it's
get
toffee.
And I get almond biscotti cookie.
I haven't gotten that yet.
Maybe that's more in the palate than the nose.
Let me drink it and then go back to the nose too. So I'm going to dive in, but I do get the toffee. That's there.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, I'll kind of go through some of the talking points here, just from the press release. Let's see here.
There's a funk to it.
So here, Maker's Mark Cellar Age stays true to its philosophy, delivering a richer, deeper, and more complex older bourbon free from the harsher tannic effects commonly found in extra-aged American whiskeys as a result of our innovative maturation process that starts in traditional Kentucky warehouses and finishes in the distillery's one-of-a-kind limestone whiskey cellar. So, yeah, that's what they were going. And they say the words taste vision in the press release like 4 times.
Do they really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's all they say is taste vision.
I'm going to have to pay attention to that now.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a professor that says too much. So I was really expecting this to not be very good after we had all what we just had.
But
it's actually really good.
It's really good.
And the finish on it surprised me.
The finish is the best part.
Yeah.
So this is what I get on the finish, which I love.
Okay.
You know
Hold
those.
on.
You know.
Let me take a drink and then you tell me the finish.
You do it. Do it. It's the best part of the finish. I love it. I don't get much from the front of the palate. I think there is some flavor there. It's mostly sweet, a little bit fruity.
Got a good analogy for the.
Yeah, the finish to me is, you go in those old school candy shops.
Yeah.
And they have the root beer barrel candies.
Oh, yeah.
That's coated in sugar.
Yeah.
That's what I get on the back end of this.
That makes sense. So the way I attribute, that's probably not right, but the way I describe the flavor of this, the progression of the flavor across your tongue and to the finish is like an Olympic weightlift. Like when you take a barbell from the floor, you're not just supposed to jerk it off the ground. You're supposed to start slow and accelerate through until you reach full hip extension, and then punch underneath of it or whatever, depending on the lift you're doing. That's what I get on this. It starts off slow on the front of the tongue, and then as it goes across the back of your tongue, it actually really starts to explode and ramps up, and then it finishes really strong.
You've said a word before that I think that's very apropos here, which is blossoms.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not blossom. It blooms.
Blooms, yeah.
As it works its way back. You've said that before, and I'm like, that's probably a really good way to describe this. It starts off, you're starting to get like that Maker's Markian type of flavor profile, but it's a little bit more amped up, fruity, sweet, almond cookie. But then it just blooms on the finish of this thing.
I would buy this for $150.
For $150, yeah.
I would buy this for $150. I would not pay $600 for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I would buy this for $150.
It's really good.
Yeah, this is really good.
That root beery, molassesy finish on the back end is what makes this bourbon. But now, if you took this bourbon and you put it against, say, that Lux Row 12-year you have right there,
sure,
it comes off weird. I'm telling you, it's just a weird thing. I think people that get this bottle, people are already, they jump to, let's compare it. Let's see how good it really is.
Yeah.
And I get that part of it.
But here's
I did that on my live stream last week, and Maker's Mark, this came in last.
Okay. So I understand the want to do that. I do it too.
Mm-hmm.
But, and stick with me here, I think that a lot of times my experience with a bourbon is completely different depending on what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
So food, other bourbons I'm eating, drinking with it. And one step further into that is I feel like some bourbons actually complement each other.
Yeah, they can.
Whereas other bourbons can kind of fight against each other.
Two bourbons I always have an issue with in blind tasting that kind of stick out like a sore thumb. One is Maker's Mark, and the other is Four Roses. I don't know why those two are weird to me.
When you go up against other things.
Yeah, if you throw them in a blind tasting for some reason, and they stick out, but it's never in a good way.
Yeah.
It's like, why is it? This
now,
one's
when you
really
do Four
weird.
Roses against other Four Roses, no problem. But,
no problem.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I think, and it all goes down to the order that you do them and the bourbons that you're putting in front of or behind or whatever. There's something weird that, like, I'll have something one night and I'll switch up to another drink and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And then I'll have that same thing the next night and be like, oh, this is really good. What was I thinking? And I honestly think that there's something about bourbons that some of them fight against each other, some of them complement each other.
Yeah.
And I really truly
That's why I
believe,
think because Maker's Mark
see what you're saying.
generally fights against other bourbons.
Yeah.
This is meant to be, on its own, to be enjoyed on its own.
I wonder how this would compare to an other, like, cask strength regular makers.
So I did that on my review. I put this against Maker's Mark 46 cask strength.
Okay, but what
to see what those flavors
what
are.
about regular Maker's Mark cask strength?
Yeah, I actually didn't have a bottle of that during the review. I was like, oh my God.
That's funny.
I was like, I don't have that bottle?
Should have asked me.
Yeah.
But, like, because this doesn't have any extra staves or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything added to it, but I know some folks had requested I do kind of this in a blind against some of the wood finishing series, FAE, BRT, all those ones to see how it stacks up. But I'm like, yeah, but that's added, stuff to it. I think you're right. I think the best thing to compare this to would just be straight up Maker's Mark cask strength.
Yeah.
You're going 6 years versus, 11 and 12 year,
right. And this
mostly
is what,
12 year.
115 proof?
115.
And then, that's going to be in that 110 to 1.
Yeah, it's like 108 to 113 ish. So, but yeah, I mean,
the mouth feels good.
It's got a little bit of a funk to it, but I think
that's what I said on my first drink.
I think it's that wheat funk that you get in older age wheaters.
Yeah, and I said that on my first drink, and then it's kind of dissipated. Now that I'm
the more you sip it goes away.
Yeah, but it's still there. It almost comes off like dusty as opposed to funk, which I know those are similar, but like.
So what's been kind of your I guess perspective on Makers? Have you been a Makers fan? And I'm not talking about wood finishing series, like kind of, and the picks, kind of leave those off the table. I'm talking about their standard releases.
Fair. I was going to say, have you seen my room?
No,
that top shelf is a ton.
I know you have a lot of wood finishing series,
yes,
but I'm talking about pure Makers. I'll even let you throw in 46 in there because that's part of the standardization.
So right when I first got into bourbon and I did not know anything, I honest to God didn't know the difference between Makers and Makers 46. So I thought 46 was like something different. Like I honestly don't remember what I thought it was, but it wasn't what I thought it.
Okay,
it's not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so, but I do like regular Makers. I like Makers 101. I really enjoy Makers 101.
Oh, I actually did put this against Makers 101.
Especially in the winter. I love Makers 101. To me, is a great wintertime bourbon. That cinnamon that comes out for me, it's strong, but it's good.
Yeah, I actually take that back. In my review, it wasn't Makers 46 cask strength. I put that against Makers 101.
101.
And
which makes sense, I guess.
It was similar on the nose.
Yeah.
Palate, obviously brighter on the 101. This has a little bit more density to it. However, it's the finish that makes it.
Yeah, this finish is outstanding.
The finish is outstanding.
Yeah, I agree. I like Makers 101. I like Makers Mark. So generally speaking, I go to a wedding or I go to some sort of function or whatever. They almost always have Makers.
They always have Makers.
I go out of state, and it's not a big bourbon state. They'll have Makers. And I have no problem drinking Makers. I'll even have an old fashioned made from Makers. That doesn't bother me.
I mean, generally you see the top 3, which is actually the top 4.
Beam,
you'll see
Jack,
Knob Creek.
Makers.
You'll see Knob Creek, Maker's Mark. Knob Creek, Maker's Mark.
Bullets
always there too. Yeah.
Well, then Jim Beam is always there. And
that's what
Jack
Knob
Daniels.
Creek. Yeah, Knob Creek.
But yeah, if they're going to have something other than Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, it's generally Maker's Mark. And sometimes Maker's Mark and Jim Beam are interchangeable. So you'll see Maker's Mark or you'll see Jim Beam. Sometimes you don't see both.
It kills me when their high-end bottle is Basil Hayden.
Oh, God, that cracks me up. That just cracks me up.
It just kills me. Like, we have Basil Hayden. Have you had that? Yes, sir. I've had Basil Hayden. Yeah, don't worry about that. Let's move along. What else you got back there?
That's funny. I went to on our vacation. We went to Santa Rosa again this year. We stayed at an Airbnb and it was in a neighborhood. It was a gated neighborhood, and they had a community pool. I got to show you pictures of it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The community pool had waterfalls, and it was like a resort pool, but it was like a neighborhood. Like people actually live there.
That's awesome.
And so people Airbnb'd it out, and we stayed in one of those Airbnbs. It came with a golf cart. We were about a half a mile away from the beach, but the golf cart, gave you the ability to go right down to the beach.
Yeah.
So we split our time between the beach and the pool, but I pretty much gravitated towards the pool because it was awesome. It was just amazing. You didn't have to go very far. It was like a resort pool.
Yeah.
It was
So I'd rather hang out in a pool all day than on a beach.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. There's just so much more to do to prepare to go to the beach than there is to go to the pool.
Exactly. All you need for the beach is a damn towel, some suntan lotion, and maybe a book if you're just going to hang out. Other than that,
the pool, you mean?
Grab for the pool. Yeah. Other than that, grab your floaties and get the pool.
Right. And so I really enjoy the pool. Especially when it's a nice pool. And that was the highlight of this trip was that pool. It was nuts.
That's awesome.
So that's where I found the B523 and the Elijah Craig B523, the Larceny and the Elijah Craig. They were there. They had Jack Daniels 12, Jack Daniels 10. But they were expensive.
I can imagine.
Florida's a secondary state.
Oh, for sure.
So, but the B523s were regular priced.
Nice.
And here's the funny thing is I bought the Elijah Craig B523 on the first day I was there at Walmart. It was sitting on the top, just intermingled with the regular Elijah Craigs. I don't think they knew what they had.
Maybe.
And so it was just sitting there.
I love when that happens.
And I'm like, wait, that's a different label. And I look and I'm like, because it was like in the mix, and it was up above on the very top shelf.
Yeah.
And they had none on the regular shelf.
Yeah.
Like they had the regular Elijah Craigs there, but like I look up and I'm like just looking to see what might be up there, and I just see a different label on that Elijah Craig, and I just go grab they had this little step ladder cart thing. I just went and grabbed it, climbed up on that, and the lady's like, "You need some help, sir?" I was like, "No, I got it." And so I grabbed the bottle, and I'm like, "Holy shit, this is a..."
I'm like, what do I work here? Give me this bottle.
But I'm like, it's an Elijah Craig B523 just sitting up there.
Just sitting up. That's crazy, dude.
And there were a few of them, but then I texted you that I got it, and you're like, "Yeah, it's not very good." And I was like, "Shit."
What, the B523?
The Elijah Craig.
Oh, Elijah Craig. Yeah, B523 isn't great this year.
But I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Ah, dude.
There was some cherry. It was some... Now, I'll have to try it against the A and the C when you bring those over.
I'll bring those over. The C... So my live stream tomorrow night...
Yeah.
Is...
I've heard the C is outstanding.
The C is ridiculous.
Your counterpart on MASH
Scott.
Journey.
Yeah,
he's thinking it might be the bourbon of the year
because he was in love with A123. I'm like, dude, wait till you have C923. And I'm so glad he got a bottle. I know it's a little bit harder for him to get stuff up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So he got one, and dude, it's. So I have a live stream tomorrow night, and I am putting C923 against all my other favorite batches of.
Do you think it's going to...
Elijah Craig Barrel Proof? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to blind.
But in your head right now, how do you think it's going to perform?
So my favorite batch of all time has always been C918.
Yeah, that's way back. Wow.
It's a way back batch. Right. I love that batch.
Yeah. How much of that do you have left?
I stocked up on that batch, so I have a couple. I have a few
bottles?
because at the time when I loved that batch so much, it wasn't as popular as it is now.
Oh yeah.
C918 was like, oh, okay, that's a good batch. I love that batch. Every time I go back to it, I love it.
Yeah.
But there have been some really good batches in between leading up to this one. The A123 is really good this year. Loved it. I thought B523 just... It's not that it's a bad bourbon. It's just kind of flat compared to like these others where you find all these like really rich flavors in Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. It just stayed so even keel to me. I'm like,
I could see that, I guess.
Yeah, there's just not.
But I thought the flavor was all good.
No, it's good.
Okay.
But that's the thing.
Okay.
But that's the thing. You have to, when you're nitpicking these batches,
yeah,
you're kind of like trying to figure out
you're putting them against each other and stuff. You have to. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So when I put A123 versus B523, the difference was incredible.
Okay.
But then C923 comes out with a 13-year, 7-month age statement, and you're like,
wow, is that the oldest it's been in a while?
So just this year, they changed the for B523, they changed the the age statements on it. They got rid of the 12 on the side, and now you have on the front.
Right. It
gives you the youngest age that's in the blend, that's in the small batch.
Up to that point, it had always been 12 years, right?
12 years.
But the B523, wasn't it younger?
Yeah, it was 8 years and change.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So people lost their mind, but then
people, come on.
I know, but then
if it tastes good, who cares how old it is?
But then C comes out. And
it's 13.7.
13.7.
That's insane.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen. I mean, obviously, because they always say
not only is it 13.7, but it's 133 proof. So you're getting into an old school Elijah Craig barrel proof pirate bottle.
Yeah.
Type of
right, because I think
experience.
The most I've seen is like 131, 130.
Yeah.
Something.
So
like
I'm handpicking some of my favorite batches tomorrow night, and I'm throwing a pirate bottle in the mix to see how it goes to see how good this C923 is, because it's really damn good.
Well,
I was going to bring that tonight, but I figured we were doing all this. I'm like, let me bring this
you'll just
because
have to come back again.
next time.
You'll have to come back again.
Yeah.
It's just when you thought you were out.
Just when I thought. I have a couple of other fun things I think you guys should try. The Baker's 13.
Oh, you have that?
Which I just released a review for that.
I've been looking for. Was that in Ohio anywhere?
No, I got that one in Kentucky.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it pretty good?
It's much better than so I don't know if you remember in 2019 when they first redid Baker's.
They went from the slender wine looking
bottle to the new look, which looks like
some of those are pretty good though.
They're great. I still think it's one of the most underrated bourbons in the market. But then along with the new release, they released a few 13-year barrels, special release Bakers in the market as well. It wasn't a huge release, but they had those silver 13-year boxes that kind of went out into the market to kind of coincide with the release of the new bottle design.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen it since until this year. They brought back some 13-year bottles. So here's the thing. Let me ask you, Jim Beam, they release a lot of high-aged, affordable bourbons. And I'm talking $10 a year, $10 per year of aging. So Baker's is $130. It's a 13-year-old bourbon. They do the same thing with Knob Creek 12-year. They do the same thing with Knob Creek 15-year.
150.
They do the same thing with Hardin's Creek.
Right.
All three Hardin's Creeks this year are all 16 or 17 years old, or $160, $170 respectively. I mean, they're every single thing. But they release so many high-age releases, it feels like, but they're all the same mash bill. So you have all these...
Hold on.
Yeah, so I'm just...
That's what Buffalo Trace does? They've got 3 mash bills, right? A high rye, or they've got the 2 ryes and the wheat.
What I would like to see...
But my point is they've got 23 fucking brands.
Well, you could say the same thing about turkey, too.
Right, but I'm just saying that it's not... This isn't like... something they're pulling over your head. Everyone does it, but it all tastes different.
I understand that from a perspective of if you're releasing 6, 7 year, 8 year blend. But when you're talking 14, 15, 18 year, when these age statements are hitting the market and people love age statements.
Yeah.
Jim Beam probably has released more high age statements than anyone.
Well, but they're also one of the bigger distilleries.
Yeah,
right?
I get that, but why? I mean,
So they probably have a lot of extra.
They have a lot of it
during the time when bourbon went bye-bye for a while.
Heaven Hill is doing it now. I feel like they have a 17-year, 20-year. They have this 13-year Logic Kick Barrel Proof, 18-year.
Let me ask you this: so like you've got Jim Beam. I'm sure Jack Daniels too, and all these different places. Jack Daniels starting to put some 10 and 12 years out on the market and stuff like that. But like, you're starting. So going back to the lore of Blanton's and Elmer T. Lee and all that stuff, where they saw that certain places produced different taste profiles, right? Yep. So same mash bill, different locations, producing different taste profiles. Okay, we've got a 12-year here and a 12-year here that taste completely different. All right, let's call this one Baker's. Let's call this one, Knob Creek 12 or whatever, So is that all they're doing? I mean, I don't feel like they're pulling anything over our...
No, I don't think so. But my question is, it's like, it's all the same mash bill. There's not a ton. Well, I mean, that's one of my issues with Buffalo Trace. The same mash bill with 3 different brands. Is it really that different? People go crazy for it. It's different bottle styles. I think everybody does their version of that.
Right.
I get it. But for me, Jim Beam, for whatever reason, has the closest profile than any of the others, as far as like a 15-year to 18-year Knob Creek. Is it really that much different? It's all the same mash bill, and they all kind of taste the same. However, this Baker's this year, to me, had something else going on.
Okay,
so that I really dug it. It's good.
Well, I will say that to me, it's a testament to bourbon in general.
Mm-hmm.
All the different variables. Everyone, like if you watch these videos and these movies and different documentaries and stuff, they always say, oh yeah, 60% of the taste comes from the barrel. Sure, maybe. Or 60% of the taste comes from the yeast strain. Do we know? Do we really know? Like, you're just making up numbers. There's no way to quantify that, where the flavor is coming from. Like,
you're right.
So I feel like that's just bullshit and adds to the lore. But my point is that it's a testament to bourbon in the sense that you've got the same mash bill, the same yeast strain, the same location as in the U.S. It's in Kentucky, same aging location, but all you're changing potentially is location in a rick house and elevation in a different rick house potentially.
Yeah.
And you get just so much crazy flavors. And some of it comes from the wood, I'm sure. I don't doubt that, but like,
I think most of it, like in my opinion, I think it comes from the barrel. That's where I think
a lot of it. I think so too.
I think I would give it 80 to 85% comes from the barrel.
But my argument to that would be, if that is the case, there's so much going on with the barrels, from season to season, droughts, rainy seasons, whatever that happened along the way before these trees became barrels.
Mm-hmm.
That no two barrels, with the exception of maybe if you made like 50 barrels in a group or something like that, but no two barrels should really be the same.
No, I get that.
So if that's the case, how do you end up with if that's the case and barrels play that much of a role on the flavor, how do you end up with a consistent taste profile?
They blend them.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
They blend it, but I mean, again,
my point is
I'm not talking.
They have to end up close.
So even if you have 2 barrels that have completely different, different microcosms within their wood staves and within the wood that's created that barrel, that's going to give a funky flavor.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what each barrel does. You're still got to figure that 75 to 80% of that bourbon is getting its flavor imparted by the barrel, whether it's a shitty barrel, a good barrel, a different barrel, a consistent barrel. It's always coming from the barrel. Now,
and you're talking in big numbers now. So that
I mean, yes,
overall,
yeast strain, mash bill, all that comes into play.
Yeah.
But if you're a good master distiller, you could kind of control all that, the pH, everything that goes into what you create, as long as there's no off flavors, no moldy corn being used, because friggin' 2 kernels of moldy corn can fuck up your entire batch. Yeah, I mean, it's really, you're depending on that barrel and the aging process to do what you think it's going to do to your bourbon.
Follow-up question. When you get a bad barrel, does that become a single barrel?
I think for some it does.
Right.
And we've tasted it.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Remember that one?
Which one are you playing at?
Lux Row? Remember that weird barrel?
That was a weird one. But
it was
tasting.
Was it the Rebel or the Ezra?
I don't know. There was one that just tasted like...
It tasted like dirt.
Dirt and like grass clippings and like... It was weird.
It's like, what happened to that barrel?
Yeah.
And didn't you say it ended up in the gift shop, you think?
Because we went back like a week later.
Yeah.
And I swear...
I swear that was what they were serving at the bar. And you were like, this is the barrel we had. And it's terrible.
It is.
Why is it up here?
Right. Like, why would you try to use this to promote it? Like, do bait and switch. I'm fine with that. Like, serve something at the bar and then sell something shitty at, that's what this was.
Dude, real quick, did I tell you about the barrels we picked at Starlight?
You mentioned it, but you haven't told me in person, no.
Yeah, so...
you, got 3 different or 4 different barrels?
Well, we got 3. We had a
One
fourth.
was we
have a fourth, but we split it with it's Bourbon Night, Chad and Sarah. But first one was a French oak aged bourbon that was then finished in a honey barrel.
Ooh.
So a French oak honey, it's like this spicy honey. It is so decadent, and I didn't think I would like it. It was going to be overly too sweet.
Yeah,
but the honey didn't take it over too much. So it had a little bit more of that French oak spice.
Yeah.
And a little bit of that sweet from the honey.
That's nice.
Dude.
That sounds good.
It was so good. By the way, Starlight, one of the best experiences you're ever going to have picking a barrel.
I've done it once.
Yeah.
And it was the first one we did of
Did you do it with Andrew?
It was Christian.
Christian, okay.
We did it with Christian. Yeah. And then who's the master distiller?
That is I always forget which Huber it is.
Well, he came in partway through.
Oh, it did.
And I'm not kidding. I feel like they shut down the distillery for us.
Yeah.
And we were getting drunk.
Yeah, that's what the feeling is when you go there.
It was our first one of the day. We had 2 more to do after that.
Yeah, like that's what the feeling though is. Like when you go in there, you feel like you're the only person there.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Which is how it should be.
And we were just thieving out of barrels.
Yeah.
And then
they don't stop.
At one point, I was just drinking everything they gave me, and I'm like,
this is
going to be bad. So we then started throwing it out in the drain, and we're like,
there is a tier system there. So the more picks you do there, the better barrels you get.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we were after a group.
Well, you've done a few now, so you're probably up.
This was our 3rd round.
Yeah.
So he pulled out. So Andrew, who's just one of the greatest dudes in the world, he's like, "Is it your 3rd time here?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, what did you pick before? So I kind of went through what we picked, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember when you picked that. He's like, okay. He's like, I got some barrels for you. So I was like, okay. So the French oak honey. So I was with the group before us because he was another fellow whiskey tuber. It was Dusty Dan.
Oh.
And he's like, Dusty was like, do you have any like honey barrels? And he's like, no, we got no honey. He did have honey. And it was
mild flex.
Yeah, it was the well, again, this is kind of the tier thing. So they kind of hold back, and I'm sure there's other barrels back there that were probably there for guys that have done 5 and 6 times of picks. But we got the French oak honey. The second one, I didn't even want to taste. I'm like, don't even give me that shit. Turkish apricot brandy finished bourbon, and I was like, yeah. I'll taste it. Whatever. I take a sip of this thing and I'm like, holy crap.
It was good.
It is so good.
Really?
It doesn't taste like apricots. It's almost like the Turkish brandy gives it this elevated sugary sweetness, but it had a finish as well.
I will say that the one thing that really impressed me about them is all the experimental stuff they were doing. All the crazy barrels they were bringing in from like different woods and different things and different used barrels from other stuff that they brought in just to test it out.
So they have a blueberry port finished bourbon.
What?
I requested, I'm like, next time I come here, I want a blueberry port finished rye. You make it happen.
What did they say?
I want it. They're like, well, our rye crop kind of sucked this year, so we don't have that much rye. So we'll see what we can do.
Well, I'll tell you. When I went there with Bourbon Enthusiast James.
Yeah.
And he had been there a few times before that, so it was actually probably his second or third trip there, kind of like what you did, and they were just giving us like all these cigar blends, all these different. I mean, it was, and then he did probably 2.5 barrels there. We did 2 barrels in the main rick, and then we went to the other rick where it was like, there was a honey finish. There was a.
It's funny. As soon as I walked in, I'm like, I don't want any Amburana shit. No, I'm over it.
They were trying
what
to
else
show
do
us
you
all.
have?
Yeah, and we tried. I bet you we had 20 barrels.
Yeah, they have some crazy stuff in there.
Yeah, it was interesting.
The third barrel we picked ended up being a PX sherry, and it just tasted like chocolate covered raisins.
Oh gosh,
it's so good. So yeah, we couldn't wait. We can't wait for those picks. But yeah, man, this was fun.
Yeah, and,
Maker's Mark Cellar Age, buddy. Good stuff.
I like it. This is something I'm going to have to look out for and try to get MSRP. I'm not paying crazy amounts for it, but I'd pay MSRP for this.
Yeah. I think that's what it's worth. I think it's good.
I think it's priced where it's where it needs to be.
It's where it needs to be, and I think it's enjoyed better on its own. I'm telling everybody that's listening out there, if you put Maker's Mark against some other hitters, it's going to fall flat. Maybe not to everything, but for most things, it's going to fall a little flat. So
I can see that.
Just enjoy it for what it is. It's the first Maker's Mark high age expression we've seen ever. But remember, again, it's an annual release, so that we will see more of this next year and the year after that and the year after that, and until Maker's Mark, can keep it going. So,
yeah.
But to your point, they planned for this, so they knew they have some stuff aging. That's probably pretty high up there in age.
And I love, I mean, we haven't talked about it, but I love the bottle. The label's very simple.
Very simple. And this...
But then there's some embossing on the label. That I think it says Maker's Mark right there. In the embossing.
Yeah, on that label. But this part, I thought, was literally written by a Sharpie. But it's actually etched into the glass if you feel it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is pretty cool. So it says 2023 release. And they're only going to write that if there's going to be a 2024 release and so on and so forth.
You got to do something.
You got to distinguish it.
Them, yeah.
Yeah. So.
So, well, I appreciate you as always bringing ridiculous amounts of bourbon over here. I mean, it's never expected, but it's always appreciated. And like you always say, it's not about the bourbon; it's the people you
share it with.
So, I embrace that.
Hell yeah, man!
Well, thanks for coming, man. As was a surprise, no one else was here tonight, so. Hopefully Brett's not in the doghouse after
yeah, I hope he's all right.
His birthday.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But join us again next week. We're going to get to the Four Roses 10 recipes here soon. I don't know when, but here soon, hopefully. Maybe next week. We'll see. Thanks for joining us. Join us next week. Thank you for joining in for yet another episode of the Bourbon Hunters. If you like what you hear, please leave us a good rating on Apple, Podbean, Google, or wherever you are listening. It definitely helps us to get great guests on our show. And follow us on Instagram and the Facebooks to keep up to date with what is in our glass. As always, sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy some bourbon.